All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD program, and in particular the AWD1100 C# programming class, some of my students have been having difficulties understanding some of the material. So I've gone back, or am in the process of going back, and decided that for every chapter that we go over, I am going to be for just about every chapter, at least for every chapter for a while. Other than chapter 1, I'm going to be creating a kind of a persistent, perpetual payroll program. Chapter 1, I explained kind of what I'd be doing. In chapter 2, I created a payroll program that was a console app, very simple. Chapter 3, a simple payroll app that was GUIized. And in 4, 5, and 6, I took that one and I added numeric and string data, control structures, methods, and event handlers, and now I'm going to handle exceptions. In addition, I went back and took the original console program that I'd created in chapter 2 and kind of added more information to it. So what I did was I rewrote that to include more numeric and string data, control structures, and methods and event handlers. Now, I'm not going to do any more with that one, at least for a while. But I am in this particular lecture going to talk about exception handling and data validation. And this leads me to two resources. And the first one here, I'll just put it up right here, and I'll make this a little bigger so that you can all see it. And that's right here. So it's from a site that's called stackify.com, and it's on C# exception handling best processes. I've looked at quite a few of these things that are out there, and I kind of like this one. All right. And as it says, it gives you the basic of exceptions, some common .NET exceptions, how to create your own exceptions, how to find hidden .NET exceptions, and some best practices. All right. Also going along with that, I went out to softwareengineering.com because we got into a discussion in our class over whether or not even using try-catch or try-catch finally, or try finally, which is almost never used, but you could, is even a good thing. And I mentioned that as far as I'm concerned, there are three different ways that you can do exception handling. All right. The first way is to basically do none. And what I call the ostrich method, or the duck and cover, where you just expect that the person or persons running your program knows what they're doing. That's probably the worst way of handling it, but fortunately or unfortunately, there's code out there in the real world that's like that. The second way to do it is pretty much the way we've been doing it thus far, and that is we've come in, and when we kind of let bad data into the system, but then after it's in, then we check it. So if it's out of range, we disallow it. If it's empty, we disallow it, etc. Now, to me, that's typically a better way of doing it than the third way, which is to use the try-catch mechanism. With the try-catch mechanism, inside of a try block, you put any and all code that could conceivably fail. Then in the catch block or catch blocks, you put how you want to handle the different things that can go wrong. The things that can go wrong are exceptions, and they're exceptions to the rule. All right. And if you want, you can also do a finally, which typically is done for housekeeping type of operations. So I'm going to also include this particular URL, and I'm going to actually add them to the code. All right. I'm going to add both these lines to my actual code that I put in, just so that they're there. All right. So to start with, and I have done nothing on this program right here is the exact same as the one that was in chapter 6. So this program will now include try catch blocks for the following data. So for the hours worked, 2 for the hourly rate, 3 for the, what do we have? I guess I can do the names as well. So let me renumber these. So these will become 3 and 4. And I'm going to get rid of this line right here. Okay, let me just go back and re-add this. Now, I'm going to put them in for the first name and for the last name. But then I'm probably going to pull them out because to me it's a little bit of overkill for lack of better verbiage. So right now what I'm doing is in this calculate routine is I'm using this keep going thing that's in here. All right. And I'm going to attempt to see if I can keep using it, but I'm going to make some changes and it'll probably look like as I'm going through here that I'm making a lot of changes. All right, so let's not remove any of the code that we have, nothing, but let's come in here and I'm going to comment out, for example, I'm going to comment out everything else that's in my calculate routine, and that's a lot of code. So all this stuff that's in here. So for now, at least, I'm just commenting it all out. Now, don't worry that I'm getting the errors in here because it's all been defined up there. That's no biggie. We'll work on this. So what are we doing here? Well, again, I'm going to be making changes in here. I might pull back some of the changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a try block right here. And I'm going to call validate first name. In fact, since I technically have a copy of what I'm working on right now, since I technically have that, I'm going to end up getting rid of a lot of this code. I'm just telling you this. So I'm going to call validate first name. All right, then I'm going to call validate last name. Then I'm going to call validate hours worked. And then I'm going to call validate hourly rate. All right, so I'm going to do these one at a time. So these I will comment out and uncomment as we get going. So for the validate first name, which again is down here, I'm going to change this. I don't want this anymore. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this. I'm going to put if it's equal to nothing. All right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to, this will now be a void. And if it's empty, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw and, oh, I thought it was an illegal argument exception. Let me see. Oh, it's an argument out of range exception. So an argument out of range. We'll just call it an argument exception. All right, so I'm going to throw an argument exception. And I'm going to go back in here and check on how I can do that. So I'm going to go back and look at these things that I've actually given to you that you should be taking a look at. So exception filters, common.next, how to create your own. That's what I'm doing here. So I'm throwing this. And what do I want to do? Well, I've got here string.format. So I want to throw a new one of these. That's actually my own exception, so I don't really want to do that. You know what? Let's try that. So I'm going to throw a new. Again, I have no idea if this is going to work. So let's see. Here's a simple example of our code. Throw this, public class, have this, and this. All right, well, let's try this. I'm going to need to massage this a little bit, as you'd probably guess. So I'm going to throw a new, and I'm going to call this empty name exception. All right, we'll put in here string.format. No value was entered for this field. Okay, I'm literally doing this off the top of my head. I've not done this before. So, this field, move this down so you can see everything that I'm working on here. So throw this, let me go back to here. So I'm going to throw this, and I'm going to get rid of all that. Now I'm going to say public class empty name exception. And I'm going to do it just like this. This is kind of the way that the way that Java does it. Delete, delete, delete. All right, and we'll put nothing in here, just like they show. So I should have to do this, and then this. Now I'm not sure if I can add this right to the program I'm working on or not. Again, if this doesn't work, you'll note what I'm doing right now will never see the light of day. Okay, so let's come in here and try to do this. So this is called empty name exception. If it doesn't work, I'm already in my mind kind of contemplating another way of doing this. So I'm going to add a class, and it's going to be called empty name exception. .cs. All right, so that created that. That's fine. So there's my class. And then I'm going to come in here and try to add this. Now I want to say that this class inherits from exception. Okay, and I'm going to put that there. Now, again, I might end up getting errors in this. I don't know. All right, but I'm going to leave it the way it is for right now. Save that, and now I'm going to come back to here. All right, to right here. Now this throw argument exception, this will now change. Now is the big reveal to see whether or not I get an error here. All right, so if there's nothing in here, telling it to do this. Okay. Well, it's telling me that it doesn't know that this exists, which is not a good thing. I wanted to come in then and up here. I'm trying this, and in here I wanted to catch and I was going to put in that new exception, which was an empty name exception. Again, if this doesn't work, at least you've gotten to see me try to create my own exception here. And And I'm just going to say so doesn't like much of anything I'm doing here. So validate does not exist in the current context. Well, there's a problem here. So it could be that I just, well, I was going to say that I removed something I shouldn't. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Oh, that's much cleaner, much better looking. This does not go there. It goes up here. But I don't think it's recognizing our empty name exception. Okay, well, I don't like the way this is going right now, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use built-in exceptions rather than creating my own here. So this would be catch argument we're going to say, okay, what was it? Good gravy. All right, I'm not going to do this anymore. Let's see. Can we do it here? Throw here a new argument exception to say no value was entered into this field. All right. So if it was empty, again, that's what we're doing. We're throwing a new exception. Notice that a lot of the errors went away now. I don't even know if I'll need a catch here. Let's just put in here exception E, and we'll put in here E dot message, and we'll just basically we'll message box that out. All right, so that's how I'm going to handle these. So if it was empty, I'm throwing that exception. And if that's the case, if there was an exception, hopefully I'll be printing out the error message. And I'm just going to do a return. I have no idea if this is going to work or how it's going to work, so let's give it a shot. There's nothing in there. Exception occurred. No value was entered for this field. That's good. And I want to make sure I go back to here. Okay. So rather than just return, this is not going to remove, well, this is only going to be if there is no name in there whatsoever. All right, so I don't really have to do anything other than I'll have to go back to the right. So if that's the case, I want to throw this. Let's just say this. If it's empty, I want to set the focus. So let's set the focus here. So text box first name dot focus, and then that's it. That'll validate the first name. Now for the last name, it'll be set up the same way. So if the last name has nothing in it, we will again set the focus there, and we will say no value was entered for, let's say for first name, and here we'll say for last name. Okay, so text boxed last name dot focus, and I think the error that we had for that is up here, so we'll fix that right now. Pause for just a moment. All right, I'll let my clock go. So there's the validate last name. All right, so this now becomes a void. Okay. One, two, oops, forgot my double quote there. All right, that cleaned all that out. So I should now be handling an empty first name or an empty last name. So let's check. So let's leave this empty. Exception occurred, no value was entered for the first name, and I'm back there. No value was entered for the last name, and I'm back there. Great. So I've now done exception handling to handle those two fields. So let's put in our other two. So next we'll do validate hours worked. All right. And again, I'm getting an error. Don't worry about that. We'll fix that in a minute. Again, I'm throwing out a lot of code here, so I might have to go back and rewrite some. I don't really care. I think there'll be one more curly that goes there, and that should fix that. So I'm getting this error because I haven't written this technically yet. So again, we're going to do this. Private void validate hours worked. Again, my errors are all gone, but I'm not doing any validation yet. So here, bool flag equals validate is numeric, and I'm going to put in text box. In fact, let's not even do that. We're going to do it like this. I'm going to say bool flag. I'm going to assume that it's false. All right, and I'm going to say string, and we're just going to call this hours. And I'm going to set that equal to text box hours worked dot text dot toString. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to say flag equals validate is numeric hours. Okay. If not flag, meaning that it returned false, then I'm going to come in and like I did up here, I'm going to throw one of these. So now we put in something that's non-numeric. So I want to do a couple things first. I want to clean it out. And then I want to set the focus. Okay. And then I want to throw a new exception. And this is going to be an argument. Yeah, this one will be an argument exception. All right. So this will say non-numeric value was entered for hours worked. Okay. All right. And I'm going to put a return here. Otherwise, we do have a valid value. So else this is doing all the validation of hours work. So I'm just going to do it right in here. If hours, in fact, now we have to convert it. So now we can say, let's call this hours str for hours string. And then let's call this decimal hours dec 0.0 m. All right, so in that case, it's return. Why does it like that? Unreachable code. Throwing that, so I guess technically we don't even have to return. Fine. Otherwise, if the hours is less than, and this will give me an error because that's now hours dec. If it's less than the min hours, or the hours dec is greater than the max hours. So if either one of those are the case, then I want to throw a different exception. I want an argument out of range exception. Let me put these each on a different line. So I'm going to do that for all of these so it's a little easier to read for my own edification, if nothing else. So this is non-numeric was entered, and this will be out of range value. I'm going to put less than 0 or greater than 84 was entered for hours worked. All right, so now coming back to here, I am catching that. I think I might be able to leave it the way that it is because it should still be catching this. So let's check. So let's run it. Nothing. It's catching an exception. No value was entered for first name. No value was entered for the last name. Non-numeric value was entered for hours worked, and I'm back here. Let's try something out of range. It's not catching that. That isn't good. So let's put in here. It's not catching that either. So those are not being caught. This one is not getting caught. So what's wrong with that? Oh, did I ever set this? So if I get down to here, hours deck equals text box hours worked dot text. Now I need to convert dot to double on that, or convert dot to decimal on this. That should fix that, hopefully. Let's check. I always like to check and make sure I didn't break anything that's in here before. Nothing for the last name. Nothing for the first name. Nothing for the last name. All right, nothing for the hours worked. Okay. So hours worked out of range. The other way. Good. All right, so that's all being caught. That's good. Everything so far is working as expected and as I think it should be working. All right. Keep that as numeric. I can get this validation thing out of here, this validation thing out of here. Okay. Now I've got my validate hours, first name, last name, hours worked. Now I got to validate my hourly rate. Now I'm going to get an error because it isn't written yet, but I'm going to grab this first name and I'm going to copy all of that code, everything that's in here, all the validation methods as well. And I'm going to paste it back in. So I'm starting here on line 132. Oh. So this did the first name. Oh. I think I copied too much, but believe it or not, we're getting close to being finished here. Validates there is a value in the last name field. Yeah, that's correct. Where did I put my... Okay, I don't need this anymore. I don't need that. All right. Hours worked is numeric. This validates that there's something in the... Don't need this. There is a value in the hours worked field. And it throws an exception if the field is empty. If the field is not empty, it validates that the value in the field is within range. If it is not, a different exception is thrown. Now with this is wrong now. It throws an exception if the text box for the last name field is blank. Perfect. I also want to change that code in there for the one for the first name field. And that's first name. Good. Okay. So why do we have errors here? Validate first name. Boom. I don't know why that would give me an error. Oh, because I've got two of them by that name. We'll fix it. Don't worry about it. We didn't do the hourly rate yet, so let's comment that one out. All right, so we got first name. There's hours worked. There's first name again, which I don't need now. And this will be validate hourly rate. Okay. So this will all change to rate. Should be just about finished with everything. Okay, so let's see. First name, last name. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but we'll give it a try. Again, if there's nothing, exception. If there's nothing, an exception. If there's nothing, an exception. If there's non-numeric, an exception. If it's out of range, an exception. If it's out of range the other way, an exception. Well, it's not throwing that now, so there's a problem with that. So we're okay up until the hourly rate here. So let's look at that. So validate hourly rate. Add that here. This will be hourly rate. There. Oh, I know what the problem is. Yes, that's it. That's hourly rate. And I don't want to do that. Yes, box hourly rate. Should fix that. And this is hourly rate here as well. All right, I should have that one fixed now. Good. Good. Those are all being handled now. I gotta make sure I clear this. Okay. Now what I'm worried about is if I put this in, I'm not going to get a gross pay. And I'm not. Okay, so we've got to make sure we're doing that as well. Okay. So it's clear and get out of here. So it's almost there. Now let's see. Okay, so what's left here? Well, we need to calculate the gross pay. If we've gotten to this point, we've got valid values for our hours worked and our hourly rate. So even though this is a little bit of repetitious code, I'm going to put here hours worked equals convert dot to decimal, text box hours worked dot text, and hourly rate equals convert dot to decimal, text box hourly rate dot text. Okay, so now I've done those. So now I should be able to come in there and put in calculate gross pay. Not there. And I have to pass in hours worked and hourly rate. Now, I don't know if I still got that code in here or not, so we'll have to check. Eric, there's the update. Where's the gross pay stuff? I've removed that. Doggone. So I'm going to go copy it back in because it's the same as the last program. That has not changed a lick. So that's here. First name, update. There it is. Copy that. I'm going to close this. I don't want to have anything open that I don't need to have open. Okay, this I can now get rid of because I'm not using it anymore. So this thing for number 7, this empty name, I'm going to delete that. If I don't need something, I'm getting rid of it. So I'm here and I'm here. Okay. This method should calculate the gross pay, so that should be set. So let's save. Now I have tested. Oops, I got errors. It says it already has one. I didn't think I had it in here. Oh, there's a lot of junk in here. So I must have already put it in once. So there's clear all. There's calculate gross pay. Oh, it wasn't there. It was already right here. I'm going to get rid of it right here and keep the other one. All right, I'm just about finished here. So let's run it again. It's not giving me a gross pay. It's not doing the end stuff here. So let's see. I think I actually know what the problem is, but we'll check. So we have to call calculate gross pay, yes. And we are calling it, but I don't think we're ever putting anything in there. So we're going to say here gross pay equals calculate gross pay. So this will have to return gross pay. And it is. Jeff Scott 4010. Still don't have a gross pay. Son of a gun. Return gross decimal. Oh, it is doing it, but I don't think we're ever putting it in anything. So that's gross pay, and then text box gross pay dot text is going to be equal to gross pay dot toString and format that to be currency. Jeff Scott 3520. Hey, we got a gross pay. Now it's just a matter of getting in those final totals, which is almost nothing. I think I just have to call this routine here. Where was that routine? Build valid, I want to call this. That's going to build that thing for me, and we want to call this. Well, let's do it in order. So we want to call both of these. We'll fix the errors right away. Okay, I'll get that out from the one that's down there. I don't need it anymore. So that's this, and this will no longer be an out. That should fix that error. All right, and then finally, we've got to call the last routine, and then if this works, we're finished. Again, it's going to look funny for a minute, but I'll remove what's in error here. And I believe everything is finished now. Let's run it a couple times to make sure that it works. All right, so Jeff Scott, it's 50 and 20. Okay, there's 1100. I did get my overtime, and all that is correct. Let's clear and put another one in. Sandy Scott, 40 and 40. 1600 plus I had 1100 before, so that's correct. Let's clear. Let's put nothing in here. Make sure that we get our exception. So Taylor, we get another exception. Actually, put her real last name. Okay. let's try 60. Put it 50 here. 3, 3,500. It was 27, so that's correct. Clear all. Now they're all cleared. Exit. No. Exit. Yes. Okay, so far as I can tell, I have finished. So let me take 5 minutes to go over what I did here, and that'll be it. Now, this keep going is no longer being used, and this thing is no longer being used, so those can be removed because they were just extraneous. So in this program, what I attempted to do, and actually did do, was to replace my error handling with try catch blocks. So notice that inside of my try is everything I want to do in the program. I want to validate the first name, validate the last name, validate the hours worked, validate the hourly rate. Any of these four can conceivably throw an exception. So they will be caught. I will throw exceptions, and then I'm just saying anyone that's caught, that's thrown, catch it right here, which will say exception occurred, and it'll actually give the message for the exception. All right, validate the first name. All it's doing is it's guaranteeing that something is put in here. If it's left blank, it's throwing an argument exception. It's resetting the focus there, and it's saying no value is entered for the last name. For the validate last name, it's doing virtually the same thing. It's saying if there was nothing entered for the last name, throw an argument exception and say no value is entered for the last name. If for the hours worked, it's doing two types of validation. First, it's validating that indeed there was something put in there. If there was not, it's giving a non-numeric message. If there was something put in, I do the conversion because I've got a value. Then I check for range. If it's out of range, I again throw an argument out of range exception. And I do a similar thing for the hourly rate. So I check to make sure with the hourly rate. So that was the hours worked. Okay, and I do the same type of thing with the hourly rate. I verify there's something in it. If there's not, I say non-numeric value for hours rate. Otherwise, I know there's something in it, so I convert it over to a decimal, and I check that it's within range. If it's not, I throw an argument out of range exception with a corresponding message. So if I get down to right here, and there were different ways to do this, I probably didn't do it the best way possible, but if I get down to here, then all four of the things above have succeeded. So I'm setting hours worked equal to the value that was converted to decimal that was in the associated text box, and the same thing with hourly rate. All right, then this stuff, technically none of this should ever fail, so really I could leave it out of the try block. I'm just going to leave it where it is. All right, then I set the gross pay and I pass in the hours worked and the hourly rate, and I take gross pay. This is that line right there is putting the gross pay in here. All right, then I update the totals, and that routine, which is down there, is going to update, add 1 to this, and add the current gross pay to our total gross pay here. And then finally, I printed everything out in a message box. So that last stuff that's in there, this is put all input and calculated output information into a single message box, and then print or show said message box. Okay. All right, there's the calculating the gross pay. There's my clear. Now I maybe would want to move different things around a little bit. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it where it is. Just wanted to check real quick and see. Okay, this has got the comments for here and for here and for here. I like to comment everything, so this comment is for here and for here. There's a comment. There's a comment. Little prologues. There's a prologue. I don't have one here. This method updates the global total employees and total gross pay accumulators. So as far as I can tell, I do have everything has got some kind of, so here calculate puts each of the methods we are attempting to call in a try-catch block. If any method fails, it should throw an associated exception message. And fix that. All right. So I've got comments up the wazoo as far as I can tell. I now have 350 lines of code. So that should be it for this particular lecture. I'll be back with the next one in a bit.